Hello and welcome to A Spirited Debate. I'm Lauren Green. Well, it seems Christmas time also brings the greatest challenges to the truths of Christianity. But one scholar is reversing the trend, confronting 2 centuries of skeptical scholarship, arguing that the historical Jesus from the small town of Nazareth is very close to being just who the Bible describes him as being. Robert Hutchinson details his findings in his book, Searching for Jesus, New Discoveries in the Quest for Jesus of Nazareth, and how they confirm the gospel accounts. Mr. Hutchinson joins me now. Welcome to you.
Hey, thanks, Lauren, for having me on.
Well, I'm curious about Nazareth, because why is the small town of Nazareth a good focal point to finding evidence for an historical Jesus?
Well, it was one of the primary arguments that many so-called mythicists or skeptics have used to say that Jesus of Nazareth never even existed. They said there's no archaeological or even textual proof that Nazareth existed in the time of Jesus. And the problem with these so-called arguments from silence, where people say there's no evidence of something, is that evidence has a weird way of popping up unexpectedly. And in 2009, they uncovered the remains of a stone house which has been reliably dated back to the Roman period that proves definitively that Nazareth was settled in the time of Jesus in the early Roman period and by observant Jews. So this sort of knocks one of the main pillars of arguments that people have used against the existence of Jesus kind of off its feet.
You know, I've been to that town in Nazareth, and we were actually at that dig. It is actually quite fascinating. But, you know, one of the ideas that has been circulated in the media about Jesus is that he was a violent revolutionary or an apocalyptic prophet predicting the end of the world. I mean, what are you saying? What does the evidence say? Well,
that's another thing. What most people don't realize in the pews is that these ideas are literally a century old. That idea of Jesus being an apocalyptic prophet who thought the world was coming to an end in a violent cataclysm was first proposed in 1906, and yet scholars today, such as Bart Ehrman, like to put this forward as sort of the cutting edge of the scientific view, and it is true that many people hold that, but there are many, many top secular scholars, agnostic scholars at top universities that reject this notion, and they certainly reject the notion that Jesus was a violent revolutionary. And the reason for that was, had Jesus really been a violent revolutionary, there would have been 1,000 crosses on Golgotha, not just 3. The Romans would not have hesitated for a second to round up all of his followers and execute them as well. And yet we know from both the Christian and non-Christian sources that the early followers of Jesus were allowed to operate freely by the Romans in Jerusalem for decades after the crucifixion. So no serious scholar really believes that Jesus was a violent revolutionary.
You know, the Gospels, for those who don't know, or the Gospels in the Bible are the 4 stories that tell the life of Jesus. And so why are the Gospels a reliable source for helping paint an historical, true picture of Jesus?
Well, first of all, we know now that the Gospels may have been written much earlier than people have imagined in the past. They've often said that the Gospels were written 40 to 60 years after the crucifixion and not by eyewitnesses. But in fact, in the UK, there is a young agnostic scholar who has, by analyzing the text of the Gospel of Mark, says that there's strong evidence that the Gospel of Mark, at least, was written perhaps 5 to 10 years after the crucifixion in the mid-30s, which would have pushed things back much earlier. Not only that, we have strong evidence that there is eyewitness testimony in the Gospels, and absolute proof that the evangelists who wrote the Gospels relied upon written sources. And many of those sources could well have been written when Jesus was still preaching in Galilee.
Very interesting stuff. Robert Hutchinson, thank you so much. The book is called Searching for Jesus. We thank you so much, and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
And thanks for joining us. Check out foxnews.com for more on this story. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.